So welcome back to our place today, to our learning space, and to Barbara Della Rosa's presentation of the book that you have read, Barbara, for your certification purposes. So you have the space to entertain us, and we're looking forward to listen to what you want to share.
Lovely. Thank you, Christina. I'm just going to share my screen. Let me know if you can see my screen.
We can. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So, well, again, Christina, thanks for giving me the time and the space today for my presentation of the book, and thanks everyone for attending it. The book I would like to talk to you about today is being a very good companion of my journey at Sunlight so far. So I really owe a lot to this book, and I read it a few times over the last year or so, and I tend to go back to this book very often. It's kind of a reference now for me for a number of reasons, and for my coaching related activities. And what I would like to do today with you is actually touching on a few points from the book that actually have impacted enormously my development in my coaching practice. And I would say, as you will realize through my presentation, they also impacted me as a person. Okay, so I'll go on presentation mode. Okay, so the book I'm going to talk to you about is the book by Marcia Reynolds, Coach the Person and Not the Problem. Marcia is very well known for her approach to coaching that she describes in this book, and it's really encapsulated in the title of the book, which is Coaching the Person, coaching the client, as opposed to coaching the client's problem. She is supportive of this approach to coaching that is transformational for the client, that is actually enables a true development for the client, that really unleashes their potential. As much as the definition of coaching from ICF says. And at the base of this approach to coaching is actually the trust on the client that they have all the capabilities to develop and to become a new person through coaching. This approach is opposite to another coaching practice that is more transactional, that focuses on the resolution of the client's problem, that focus on evaluating the options to resolve the client's problem and then define what is the best one for the client. And this approach is not what Marcia recommends, because she says it tends to make the client more dependent on the coach when it comes to acting upon the resolution of the problem. And this distinction between coaching a problem and coaching the person has been quite revolutionary for me at the beginning. I was particularly familiar with coaching that was coaching the problem. In the corporate environment where I come from and where I work, coaching the problem is actually what we are requesting on a daily basis. Resolving the problem, resolving the issue is troubleshooting is something that we are requested on a daily basis. And sometimes I feel that, sometimes it's what we're paid for, and certainly, for example, my manager is very happy when I do resolve, an issue for her. And, in the past, I was also convinced that obviously allowing our leaders in the organization obtaining a resolution with coaching through coaching was actually convincing them of the value of coaching and actually convincing them to put some money on it, to invest some money on it. And also, I have to admit that at the very beginning, when I started my sessions as a coach, it wasn't very natural for me to listen to the client needs and think, oh my God, I've been through this already. I've tried these solutions and try this, as it might work for you as well. And so in a way, leading around the resolution of the problem. But then with times, with my practice, with developing in my learning curve on the ICF approach and competencies is when I discovered that actually the trust on the client to be fully capable of finding the solutions that they need, and that I should only facilitate the process for them during the session. And one of the pillars of Marcia coaching the person approach is actually the concept that the client is led by their operating system. And again, this is another crucial discovery for me during my coaching practice and reading, and thanks to reading this book. With that, Marcia means that each individual thinking and behavior are actually dictated, are the result of their operating system, which is made of identity, values, needs, stories. And all these components of their operating system do interact with each other, and they do determine their thinking patterns, their habits, their behavior ultimately. And when you coach the person, the coach should actually question, mirror all these elements to then help the client to actually in that thought-provoking process, that creative process that coaching is all about. And when I read this concept for the first time about the operating system associated with human beings, I have to say I didn't like it. I kind of rejected it, really. For me, when I think of an operating system, I don't think about a software, Microsoft Windows, something that react through coding and programming, or for example, the engine of a car, that is a system of different elements that do, yes, interact one another, but to responding to the laws of mechanics, and with that then ultimately allow the car to move. So in other words, I found that terminology a bit diminishing of when it is related to a human being. And because when I think of an individual, or of a person, I do think of a perfect, beautiful creature that feels, thinks, and behaves in their unique way. And because they have a unique world, their own unique world, made of assumptions and beliefs and lessons learned from experience and from education and emotions and feelings. All these components, they do interact with one another, but in a magical way, in a unique way, and certainly not according to any laws of mechanics or similar. And so, however, despite I was not liking this terminology by Marcia, I do recognize that her concept of the client being an operating system in a way, helped me a lot in understanding and also living the ICF competencies ultimately. In particular, that concept has helped me a lot understanding and developing my coaching mindset. In fact, when I recognize that the client is a unique world, a complex and unique world, that has over time triggered a profound curiosity in me on the client. And you know what happens when you take your 15, 20 minutes to kind of prepare for the session, just before you approach a session, it's when you forget about your emails, you switch off your phone, you forget about the dinner that you have to make, and you I review my notes and my question mapping and all of that. Then is when the curiosity starts. And I think, oh, what is she going to tell me this time? Where is she going to take me to this time? What is she aiming for? What is the values that she will express throughout the session? And curiosity actually drives the whole session for me now. And not only that session, it might also trigger curiosity on follow-ups, on additional session coming afterwards. So if you remember competency 2 from ICF and the way the coaching mindset is defined, it talks about a coach developing and maintaining a mindset that is curious, flexible, client-centered, and that's exactly what Marcia helped me to live as a practicing coach. And then over time, I've also reflected on this curiosity of mine, and I think I've made a step forward and try to understand why I'm so curious about the client and their world. And it's actually, the conclusion is that I'm actually curious about the human beings, and through that is actually nothing different than a way to discover myself, a self-discovery journey through coaching my clients, through entering their world, their values, their assumptions, their feelings. So it's indeed being part of this beautiful world during the session that actually mirrors my world and helps me discovering myself. In a way, coaching is shifting, the focus, my focus, that, ultimately I see myself also a big part of discovering myself. And Marcia also explains, several different tools that can help coaching the person. And you see them on this slide. I just reported a few of them. You see that, you see labeling what the client says, mirroring the language that they use, using reflective inquiry rather than just asking questions, simply asking questions to the clients. All of these help discovering the client operating system or the world, and actually facilitate looking inside their brain and ultimately get to the resolution of their blocks. I do believe we are all familiar with this, because obviously those goes across, mentioned across the ICF competencies as well. And actually ICF offers even more than that. But out of all these practices and these techniques that I've learned over time, I believe there is one in particular that has turned out to be, for me, the most impactful, and certainly the sign and the evidence that of my effort and my my intention to coach the person rather than the problem. And I would say it's also the most fascinating for me. And this technique is catching emotional shift. So oftentimes, the client actually may show some feelings during the sessions, and they're not necessarily those that you see on these slides that I borrowed from the field Inside Out. But often we capture a change in posture, or a different tone of voice, or a different eye expression, or a smile, or a laugh. And it's highly important for the coach, the person approach, to pay attention to these moments and mirror them to the client and investigate them with the client. And that is because they are actually talking about another part of their world, another part of their system. During the session, in the coaching session, we have the narrative from the client, what they say, which is the told, but there is also the untold, what they really are going through during the session. They may not be entirely shared or said by the client directly. And so inquiring, mirroring, getting an explanation of this reaction can also reveal part of the world of the client that can be the source of the resistance to change for them, can be the block to the resolution of the problem. And something that Christina and I shared in the past few one-to-ones is that the client can lie, but the body doesn't. It is actually important also both by ICF and by Marcia's model that we do become judgmental on the client's emotion, and even not sympathetic with them. We need to show that we care, but without holding their hands, without getting into their emotional state. This is key to embrace what ICF says when it says that the coach has to create a safe environment for the client, because in that moment, when they show their emotion, is when they show their full vulnerability. They really, show something inner, the most inner part. And it's important that we create this safe environment where they can actually show that freely. For me, as I said probably earlier, this has become, managing emotional reaction has become the strongest evidence of my attempt and my intention to coach the person and not the problem. And you will probably see me in a session asking, oh, I hear you. I see, you have a change your facial expression. Is this correct? Tell me about it. What is going on for you? Tell me, how you interpret these, and to help in this way the client to understand and elaborate on those emotions. And with this, really, I'd like to, wrap up and conclude my presentation. In conclusion, as I shared already, my journey to become a coach at the moment is not only a way to offer a value to the clients, hopefully, but it is indeed a path to mirroring myself through the clients, and also discovering myself more and more. I do believe that the discovery of oneself never ends in life, and actually coaching has shown me so far really a way to do it. And my journey with Marcia it's not come to an end. It's not come to a conclusion yet. I still will refer to, to her book and to her description of competencies in actions of, we'll refer to examples, in the book to actually develop my coaching practice. Okay, so I hope this presentation has been helpful to you. As I said, I'm always curious about human beings, and I would love to ask you if anything of the points that are raised today in my presentation resonates somehow to you too, really, as part of the follow-up to this presentation. In any case, thanks for your attention, and Christina, over to you.
Thank you, Barbara. It's been a journey, and it's been going from one place to another, especially the emotional little funny faces. And so, yeah, you are asking the audience a question, so we can maybe open the microphone for one or two contribution if there's anything that resonated with your journey in coaching, or if you have any questions for Barbara as well.
I would like to share two thoughts that came into my mind thanks to Barbara. The first was the question of triggering, how strong trigger can be transformation level for the curiosity in a way that is serving to our clients. And the second one, you talk about a human being or a client as a complex, as a whole. So for me, that's something that is puzzled or a complex of small parts that can be also triggered, that it can be source of magic and deep and flourishing exploration. Yeah. So that's my sharing. Thank you.
Thanks, Eva.
Okay, so before we close our recording also for Barbara's presentation, yeah, this is also quite an interesting way where you mentioned the operating system. You mentioned how this definition was useful for you to integrate and to better embrace the ICF competencies. So you can see how, especially for those who are watching these presentation another time, other students in the future, how reading the book can be a useful tool in developing your coaching practice. And that's why we encourage our students to work on this project, which seems to be kind of a simple or summarize work, but it is more than that. So it's about integrating and leveraging reading one of the book in our bibliography. And the point that you raised about catching emotional shifts is because it is so impactful since we don't know. As you said, it is a complex, unique operating wonder, a human being. So it's interesting how we can explore and listen to what it is not so obvious in words, and the shifts. It's not the emotions only, but the shifts in the emotional aspect. It brings something to the surface. So it's such a subtle but such a powerful aspect that we can use in coaching. So thank you so much, Barbara, for your work. I'll stop the recording and I invite you, the participants, and also those who watch this video to join us for more and other presentations in the future.